and East African markets largely negative today, the first trading day of the week. A number of frontier African markets taking a bit of a back seat, where the developed markets and the emerging markets surged. As we heard earlier, China gave a big rally to the markets around the world. The Europeans took a bit of that, and now Wall Street is still in session. But this is the Nairobi Securities Exchange, finished around that number. The TSI, that's the Tanzania's stock index, was flat in the day. In Uganda, the market was also flat, as well as the Rwanda Stock Exchange. Of course, if you check through, you will find out that the Rwanda Stock Exchange is the best performing equity market in sub-Saharan Africa for the year 2020 year to date. We'll talk about that the next couple of days. But let's go to the big story around the Kenya story, which has to do with the Airways. That's the company called the Pride of Africa. So what's the problem with this airline, and what lies ahead for the shareholders? Meantime, the President Uhuru Kenyatta says Kenya Airways will go back. The airports will be reopened for international flights on the 1st of August, and local airlines will be reopened for business on the 15th of August. Then you have the Rwanda Air says it will resume operations on the 1st of August. Meantime, Rwanda's is the best year today, as I heard earlier, in terms of the stock market. That is soft but positive June PMIs across a number of African economies, including South Africa, Mozambique, Uganda. All those numbers are still what analysts are chewing together to have an idea of where we're going. Positive numbers, still soft, all of them below 50.0 reading, which takes you away from contraction to an expansion in manufacturing activity. So we talked about South Africa a little bit earlier. Then, of course, we've got Uganda's June inflation in at 4.17%. But let's get back to Kenya Airways, where the big story is this airline. So it's little wonder that many Kenyans are emotional about these airline shares being listed on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now this company is delisting. I have a few questions to Aly Khan-Satchu, who is the CEO and founder at Rich Frontiers Management, is joining me from Nairobi. Ali, good evening. Let's have this conversation around this company that you know so well, listed not just on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, but also listed in Tunisia, in Tanzania and the Uganda Stock Exchange. Let's talk about this. Good evening, Ali. Hope you have a nice day so far.
Thank you so much, Bourse.
Great, it's good to see you. So let's go straight to this big story. How are the shareholders of this iconic airline being sorted out by the authorities?
So, Bourse, you know, Kenya Airways has had a very tough period for the last few years. A lot more competition coming out of Ethiopian, Rwandan, plenty of airline competition, and basically there's been a sequence of losses for the last 5 years. And what the government is seeking to do is to restructure Kenya Airways' balance sheet. They're looking to merge it with Kenya Airports Authority. Kenya Airports Authority owns a huge amount of land, which is very valuable. So the government is looking to beef up the balance sheet of Kenya Airways via this merger with Kenya Airports Authority. They're going to buy out Air France KLM, which owns about 26% of the shares. And in order to do this entire restructuring exercise, they've suspended the share off the Nairobi Stock Exchange for the next 90 days. They're going to table an offer to Air France KLM. They're going to probably table an offer to the minority shareholders, and they're going to basically take the company into this new merged entity, which they hope will extinguish the accumulated losses and put it on a much stronger financial footing. Shareholders, this was one of the first shares, Bourse, that was listed on the stock exchange many years ago. So there are a lot of small shareholders, and I think the government's keen to look after their interests.
Okay, so do you have any idea, Ali, where Kenya Airways is going at the moment? Finally.
So, look, it's in the national interest for Kenya to have an airline. They uplift around 5 million passengers a year. Tourism is a very big component of our GDP. And therefore, it's not an option. We don't have an option to not have a national airline. So I think the positive thing here is it will make the airline stronger financially, put it on a firmer footing, and give it an opportunity to become once more the pride of Africa, which, as you mentioned, is its tagline. But it's not been something you could happily say for the last few years.
So, for what other reasons, Ali, are other listed companies delisting from the Nairobi Securities Exchange? For example, the petrochemical dealer, Kenol Kobel PLC. What's the rationale here?
So there's been a series of them. It started a few years back, but the most recent has been Kenol Kobel, as you said, which is a big petrol station operator, retail, sells through its various stations, and it was taken over by a French entity big in West Africa and Francophone Africa. And basically, they did not want to sit on the stock exchange anymore and took it private. And we've seen a string of these. And I think the reasons behind it are that a number of people feel that the stock market has not been a fair and accurate price discoverer of the value of these businesses. And therefore, investors have felt they could do better outside the purview of the stock market. It's a great shame because it shrunk the number of shares available to investors. And also, there was a very progressive privatization program a few years ago. Safaricom was the epitome of that privatization program. And that's really stalled under the current administration. So, the stock market has been trying to encourage further listings, not very successfully, but they've established good programs, but haven't managed to push product through that program pipeline so far.
So if you look at the Nairobi Securities Exchange so far and the listed companies in 2020, the NSE PLC is listed on its own exchange. It's a PLC. So how far have they fared in 2020? No thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic.
So it's been a very tough year at the Nairobi Stock Exchange this year. So the all-share index is down around 25% year to date. 50% of our market capitalization is Safaricom, which has held up well. It's part of the whole movement, the whole COVID circuit breaker story, which has lifted the prices of internet-based, mobile money-based companies, which is the space Safaricom is in. If you stripped out Safaricom, it would be a horrendous story. The banks have been sharply repriced lower. The banks make up a big part of the stock exchange. The NSE itself has also reversed course, but interestingly did quite well because it's really correlated to volumes. And in the first half of the year, much like you had in Nigeria, we saw divestment by the foreign investor class and investment by the local investor class. But that created pretty good volumes, which fed through into the bottom line in the NSE. But, we're in a bear market for now. We're still in it, and share prices have been repriced lower. They're looking attractive now. I mean, banking stocks on price-earnings ratios of 3, 4, 5. But the market is very concerned about loan books. In particular, we've had most banks restructure loans. I mean, KCB, our biggest bank, restructured $1 billion worth of loans, but for 3 months. And investors are asking themselves what happens in 3 months' time, because unless we get a V-shaped recovery, you're going to have to restructure those loans again.
Yeah, I understand how these things have paced out. So, a final one quickly, Ali. How has all of this impacted the currency when you look at the position of investors? We saw a couple of innovations in the Nairobi Bourse in the year in terms of online trading, seamless transactions, because despite the pandemic and all of that. But again, where's the currency play here, or exchange rate? To wrap it up.
So the currency is down about 5.5% year to date. It's been, the shilling has typically been a very well-behaved sub-Saharan African currency, but obviously issues around debt, government of Kenya debt, and other issues have not been helpful. So, look, best performing currency in Africa today is the Malawian kwacha, up 4.4%. The rand down 24%, we're down 5.5%, which isn't bad given what we've seen in these first 6 months, in my view.
Interesting, Aly Khan-Satchu, the CEO and founder at Rich Frontiers Management. Let's leave it there for today. Do have a very good evening and see you on the show next time.